I don't care what the schedule says, I am Marcus Thorne. And my time is worth more than this entire building. The sound of a hand slamming against the granite reception desk echoed through the sterile hallway of St. Jude's cardiac wing. It wasn't a door slamming, but the sharp entitlement lace crack of flesh against stone that made everyone freeze. Nurses stopped typing. Patients in wheelchairs looked down at their laps. The air in the waiting room instantly grew heavy, sucked dry of oxygen by one man's massive ego. I heard the commotion before I saw it. I was rounding the corner from the elevator, one hand pressed against the small of my back to support the 8-month bump that housed my twin girls. My feet were throbbing inside my sensible orthopedic sneakers, and my long micro-braided hair was pulled back into a heavy ponytail that swung against my shoulders. I was exhausted. I had just come off a 6-hour emergency bypass, and all I wanted was a cup of herbal tea and 5 minutes to sit down. But peace wasn't on the menu today. "Sir, please lower your voice," the head nurse, Mrs. Higgins, said. She was a saint of a woman, but even she looked rattled. "Dr. King is finishing up with a patient. She is the best surgeon in the state, and she is worth the wait." "I was told 9 a.m. Marcus roared. He turned to the young, terrified blonde woman standing next to him. His wife, I assumed. She looked like she wanted to melt into the floor. "This is incompetence, Trixie. Absolute incompetence. I pay a premium for the best healthcare, and they leave me standing here like I'm waiting for a bus." I stopped about 20 feet away. My heart didn't just skip a beat. It hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. I knew that voice. It was deeper now, rougher around the edges, maybe from years of shouting at board members, but the cadence was exactly the same. The arrogant tilt, the way he elongated his vowels when he was angry. It was Marcus. 5 years. It had been 5 years since I walked out of our cold, sterile penthouse with nothing but a suitcase and a broken heart. 5 years since he looked me in the eye and told me I was boring, that my obsession with medicine made me a terrible wife, and that he needed someone fun. And now here he stood. He looked older. His expensive Italian suit was tailored to hide it, but I could see the gray at his temples and the slight pallor of his skin that hinted at why he was here in the cardiac wing. He was sick. Before I tell you how I ended up holding the life of the man who destroyed me in my hands, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Like this video and comment karma down below if you believe that what goes around comes around. You don't want to miss how this surgery ends. I should have turned around. I should have walked back to the staff lounge, paged Dr. Evans, and told him to take the consult. I didn't need this stress. My blood pressure was already borderline, and the twins were kicking my bladder like it was a soccer ball. But my feet wouldn't move. I stood there frozen watching him. Marcus turned away from the desk, his eyes scanning the hallway with a sneer. He was looking for someone to blame, a target for his frustration. His gaze swept over the nurses, the other patients, and then landed on me. I was wearing my navy blue scrubs, a white lab coat draped over my arm because I was overheating, and my hospital ID was flipped backward on its lanyard. To him, I wasn't the chief of cardiothoracic surgery. I was just a black woman in scrubs, pregnant, standing still in a hallway. He nudged his wife, Trixie. She was pretty, very young, maybe 25. She had the kind of nervous energy that comes from walking on eggshells around a volatile man. I knew that energy well. I used to have it. "Look at that," Marcus said, loud enough for me, and the entire waiting room to hear. He gestured toward me with his chin. "That is exactly what I'm talking about. Look at the state of this place." Trixie whispered something to him, trying to shush him, but Marcus was on a roll. He loved an audience. "No, look at her," he continued, his voice dripping with disdain. "She's barely moving. Probably a nurse's aide or a cleaner taking a break she didn't earn. Look at the size of her. She's huge." I felt the heat rise up my neck, hot and prickly. My hands instinctively went to my belly, protecting my girls. "They hire anyone these days," Marcus scoffed, turning back to Mrs. Higgins but keeping his volume high. "Affirmative action at its finest, right? How is someone in that condition supposed to be useful in a medical emergency? She can probably barely tie her own shoes, let alone help a patient. It's unprofessional to have staff waddling around looking like they're about to drop a litter in the hallway." Mrs. Higgins gasped. "Sir, that is..." "It's disgusting," Marcus interrupted. "I bet she's counting down the minutes until she can go on maternity leave and suck up a paycheck for doing nothing." Meanwhile, people like me, people who actually built this city, are left waiting. He looked back at me, his eyes cold and empty of recognition. Hey, you, can you even hear me? Go get me a water. If you can manage to walk to the vending machine without collapsing. The hallway went deadly silent. The air crackled with tension. I saw Mrs. Higgins reach for the security button under her desk, her face red with fury. I took a deep breath. In through my nose, out through my mouth. Compose yourself, Zola, I thought. You are a queen. You are a surgeon. You are not the scared little girl he threw away. I took a step forward. Then another. The click of my sneakers was the only sound in the corridor. I walked with my head high, my back straight, despite the ache in my lumbar spine. I walked right up to him until I was 3 feet away. Up close, I saw the fear behind his arrogance. His pupils were slightly dilated. His breathing was shallow. He was terrified of his diagnosis, and he was lashing out at the world because he couldn't control his own failing heart. Water, Marcus repeated, though his voice faltered slightly as I got closer. He was realizing that I wasn't looking down. I was looking him dead in the eye. I am not a nurse's aide, Mr. Thorne, I said. My voice was calm, low, and smooth. It was the voice I used when I told families their loved ones had died, and the voice I used when I told them they lived. It was a voice of absolute authority. I am not a cleaner, and I am certainly not here to fetch you a water. Marcus blinked, confused. He looked at my face, really looked at it for the first time. I saw the gears turning in his head. He was trying to place me, but he couldn't. The Zola he knew wore her hair chemically straightened and pulled back in a tight bun. The Zola he knew wore modest dresses and never spoke above a whisper. The Zola he knew wasn't pregnant. Then what are you? He sneered, trying to regain his footing. Because you're certainly not doing anything productive standing there. I reached up and flipped my ID badge over. The laminated plastic caught the overhead fluorescent light. Dr. Zola King, Chief of Cardiothoracic Surgery. I am the reason you are here, I said. I am the surgeon you have been screaming for. And judging by the color of your nail beds and the distension of your jugular vein, I'd say you're about 3 weeks away from total heart failure. So unless you want to die in this lobby while insulting the only person in 100 miles qualified to fix your mitral valve, I suggest you sit down and shut your mouth. Marcus's jaw literally dropped. He looked from my badge to my face and then back to my belly. The color drained from his cheeks, leaving them a sickly gray. Zola, he whispered. Came out as a choke. Zola. Becky. Dr. King, I corrected. I took my maiden name back. Right after I signed the divorce papers you sent via courier. Trixie let out a small gasp. You know her, Marcus? Marcus looked like he had been punched in the gut. He took a staggering step back, his hand clutching the reception desk for support. She was my wife. Ex-wife, I clarified, my eyes never leaving his. And Mr. Thorne, regarding your comments on my physical state, yes, I am pregnant. With twins. And I just spent 6 hours on my feet repairing an aortic dissection while you were likely sitting in a climate-controlled car complaining about traffic. My condition does not affect my skill, but your blood pressure is affecting my patience. I turned to Mrs. Higgins. Rita, take Mr. Thorne to exam room 3. Get his vitals. If his systolic is over 160, page me immediately. Otherwise, let him wait. Yes, Dr. King, Rita said, a smug smile plastering her face. I started to walk away. I needed to get out of there. My hands were starting to shake, and I refused to let him see it. Wait. Marcus called out. Zola, wait. You're a surgeon? A chief surgeon. I paused and looked back over my shoulder. I always told you I was going to be the best, Marcus. You just never listened long enough to hear me. But, the baby, he stammered, his eyes glued to my stomach. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. The memory hit us both at the same time, violent and sharp. 5 years ago, I was sitting on the edge of our king-sized bed, clutching a positive pregnancy test. I was a second-year resident then, tired all the time, smelling like antiseptic and cafeteria coffee. Marcus had come home late again, smelling of expensive perfume that wasn't mine. I'm pregnant, I had whispered, hoping, praying that this would be the thing that fixed us. That a baby would make him look at me with love again. Marcus hadn't smiled. He hadn't hugged me. He had sighed, a long, exasperated sound that sucked the air out of the room. Zola, look at you, he had said, gesturing to my scrubs, my messy hair, the dark circles under my eyes. We can't have a baby. You're barely a wife. You're never here. You're obsessed with this hospital. A child? It would be a disaster. But we can make it work, I had pleaded. No, he had said coldly, turning his back to remove his cufflinks. Get rid of it. Or don't. But if you keep it, you're doing it alone. I'm leaving, Zola. I've met someone who actually has time for me. Someone who fits my life. Get rid of it. Those 4 words had haunted me for years. I looked at him now, standing in the hospital hallway, staring at the life growing inside me. Life that had nothing to do with him. This has nothing to do with you, Marcus, I said coldly. Rita, room 3. Now. I walked away. I walked straight to my office, closed the door and sank into my leather chair. My hands were trembling so hard I couldn't pick up my water bottle. I closed my eyes and tried to breathe. He is just a patient, I told myself. He is just anatomy. A broken pump that needs fixing. You are a professional. But he wasn't just a patient. He was the man who had looked at me like I was garbage. He was the man whose betrayal had caused me so much stress that, a week after he walked out, I miscarried that baby he didn't want. I lost my first child alone in a bathroom, crying for a husband who was already on a beach in Cabo with his mistress. And now fate, with its twisted sense of humor, had put his beating heart in the palm of my hand. A knock on the door startled me. Come in, I managed to say, smoothing my features. The door opened and Julian walked in. Dr. Julian Vance. The head of neurology, 6'2" of kindness and brilliance, with skin the color of deep mahogany and a smile that could light up the darkest ICU. He was holding a kale smoothie and a bag of roasted almonds. I heard there was a disturbance in the force, Julian said, his eyes scanning my face instantly. He knew me better than anyone. Rita said some VIP jerk was yelling at you in the lobby. He walked over and placed the smoothie on my desk, then came around to rub my shoulders. You okay, Zo? The girl's okay. I leaned back into his touch, the tension melting slightly. I'm fine. The girls are fine. They're just doing gymnastics. And the jerk? Julian asked. The jerk? I sighed, opening my eyes to look at the man I was actually going to marry. The man who worshipped the ground I walked on. The jerk is Marcus. My ex-husband. Julian's hand stopped moving. The Marcus? The get rid of it Marcus. The very same, I said. And I have to perform open-heart surgery on him. Julian came around the desk and crouched down so he was eye level with me. He took my hands in his. You don't have to do anything. You can recuse yourself. Transfer him to Mercy General. Pass him to Evans. No one would blame you. Conflict of interest, emotional distress. Take your pick. I looked at the ring on my finger, the simple, elegant gold band Julian had given me. Then I thought about Marcus in the hallway, mocking my pregnancy, doubting my skill. No, I said, a new resolve hardening in my chest. If I transfer him, he wins. If I transfer him, he gets to think that I'm still that weak, emotional girl he left. He thinks I'm incompetent. He thinks I'm just a affirmative action hire. I stood up, wincing slightly as my back popped. I'm going to cut him open, I said, my voice steady. I'm going to fix his broken heart. And I'm going to make sure he lives a long, healthy life knowing that he owes every single beat to the black woman he called useless. Julian stared at me for a second, and then a slow grin spread across his face. He kissed my forehead. That's my girl. Remind me never to make you angry. Too late, I said. I'm already angry. Now, I have a consult to do. I grabbed my tablet and my stethoscope. I checked my reflection in the small mirror on the wall. I looked tired, yes, but I also looked powerful. I walked out of my office and headed toward exam room 3. When I opened the door, Marcus was sitting on the exam table, his shirt off. He looked small. Without the suit, without the entourage, he was just a middle-aged man with flabby skin and a terrified expression. Trixie was sitting in the corner, scrolling on her phone, looking bored. Marcus looked up when I entered. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a desperate, pleading look that turned my stomach. Dr. King, he said, stumbling over the title. Zola, please. We need to talk. Shirt off completely, please, I said, ignoring his attempt at intimacy. I stepped into the room, leaving the door slightly ajar for protocol. I'm going to listen to your lungs. Zola, I didn't know, he said, his voice cracking. I didn't know it was you. If I had known. If you had known, you would have been polite? I asked, placing the cold stethoscope against his back. Breathe in. He inhaled, a wheezy rattling sound. Fluid in the lungs. His heart was failing faster than I thought. That's the problem, Marcus, I said, moving the stethoscope. You shouldn't need to know someone to treat them with basic human dignity. You mocked a pregnant woman in a public hallway because you thought she was help. That says more about your heart than any echocardiogram ever could. I was stressed, he argued, but it was weak. I'm sick. I'm scared. We're all scared, I said. Breathe out. I moved around to the front. I had to lean in close to listen to his heart valves. I could smell the stale sweat of fear on him. I looked at his chest, the chest I used to sleep on, the chest I used to cry on. It meant nothing to me now. It was just tissue and bone. Zola, about the baby, he whispered so low Trixie couldn't hear. The one before. I think about it. Sometimes. I pulled back sharply, the stethoscope swinging around my neck. Do not, I hissed. Do not bring that up. You lost the right to speak about that child the moment you walked out the door. I just want to apologize, he said, tears welling in his eyes. I see you now. You're successful. You're a mother. You did it. I was wrong. You were cruel, I corrected. There is a difference. I stepped back and tapped on my tablet. Your mitral valve is destroyed, Marcus. You have severe regurgitation. Your left ventricle is enlarged. You are in end-stage heart failure. Without surgery, you have maybe 2 months. With surgery, you have a 90% chance of survival. You'll do it, right? He asked, grabbing my wrist. You're the best. They said you're the best. You have to save me. I looked at his hand on my wrist. His grip was weak. I gently but firmly peeled his fingers off. I am the best, I agreed. But before I agree to be your surgeon, there are going to be some ground rules. Because in my operating room, I am God. And you need to decide if you trust the woman you called useless to play God with your life. Trixie looked up from her phone. Can't we just get another doctor? This feels weird. There is no other doctor, Marcus snapped at her, his old self flaring up for a second. Not with her stats. Not with my timeline. He looked back at me. I trust you. I have no choice. Good, I said. Then get dressed. We have pre-op labs to run. I turned to leave, but he spoke again. Zola, are you happy? I stopped at the door. I put a hand on my belly, feeling a strong kick from baby A. I thought about Julian waiting for me with a smoothie. I thought about the house we just bought, filled with light and love. I am deliriously happy, Marcus, I said, because I built a life that didn't include you. I walked out, closing the door on his stunned face. But as I walked back to the nurse's station, my knees finally gave out. I grabbed the counter, gasping for air. The adrenaline was crashing. Dr. King. It was Julian again. He appeared out of nowhere, catching my elbow. You okay? I'm shaking, I whispered. I hate him, Julian. I hate him so much. I know, Julian said, pulling me into a side hug. Use it. Use the hate. Sharpen your scalpel with it. But don't let it consume you. You're better than him. I have to operate on Thursday, I said. 2 days. Then we prep, Julian said. And I'll be right there. I'm scrubbing in. You're neuro, I said, half laughing. I'm scrubbing in to hold your hand if you need it, he said. Or to punch him while he's under anesthesia. I haven't decided yet. I laughed, a real laugh this time. No punching the patients. Fine, Julian grumbled. But I'm watching him. The next 2 days were a blur of tests, scans, and dodging Marcus's attempts to send me flowers. He sent roses, red ones. I had Rita throw them in the trash. He sent a card. I shredded it. Thursday morning arrived with a gray, heavy sky. I woke up at 4 a.m. unable to sleep. I sat in the nursery, rocking in the chair Julian had assembled, staring at the 2 empty cribs. You can do this, I told myself. You are Dr. Zola King. But as I drove to the hospital, a dark thought crept into my mind. A thought that terrified me. I had the power to kill him. It would be so easy. A slip of the ligature. A loose stitch. A bubble of air. Oops, tragic complication. No one would question it. His heart was bad. These things happen. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. No. I am a healer. I do not do harm. But as I scrubbed in that morning, looking at my hands under the water, I felt a weight I had never felt before. I walked into the oar. The lights were bright. The music was low jazz, my preferred operating soundtrack. Marcus was already on the table, looking small and pale under the blue drapes. The anesthesiologist, Dr. Park, was at his head. Ready to go to sleep, Mr. Thorne? Dr. Park asked. Marcus looked around frantically. His eyes found me. I was masked, cap, gown on. All he could see were my eyes. Zola, he mumbled, the drugs already hitting him. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Go to sleep, Marcus, I said. My voice was flat. His eyes fluttered. Don't let me die. And then he was under. The monitor beeped a steady rhythm. I stepped up to the table. I held out my hand. Scalpel, I said. The metal felt cold in my palm. I looked down at the iodine-stained chest of my ex-husband. I took a breath. And I made the first cut. The sternum saw is a sound you never really get used to. It's a high-pitched whine like a drill, followed by the smell of bone dust. It's primal. It's violent. And it is the only way to get to the heart. I held the saw steady. My hands, which had trembled in my office just an hour ago, were now rock solid. This was the paradox of being a surgeon. My life could be falling apart, my emotions could be a hurricane. But the moment I stepped up to the table, everything went quiet. The world narrowed down to a 10-inch square of illuminated flesh. Retractor, I ordered. Dr. Evans, my first assist today, handed me the heavy metal instrument. We cranked Marcus's chest open. There it was, the pericardium. And beneath it, the rhythmic, struggling beat of the organ that kept Marcus Thorne alive. It looked ordinary. I don't know what I expected. Maybe I expected his heart to look black and shriveled like the Grinch. Maybe I expected it to be made of stone. But it was just a muscle. A pink, glistening wet muscle surrounded by layers of yellow fat. It looked vulnerable. He's got a lot of scar tissue, Evans noted, peering into the cavity. Look at that adhesion near the aorta. I see it, I said. He's been living on borrowed time for years. Let's get him on bypass. Cannulate the aorta. This was the dangerous part. To fix the valve, we had to stop the heart. We had to kill him technically and then bring him back to life. Flow is up. Pressures are stable. The perfusionist announced from behind the heart-lung machine. You are clear to cross-clamp. Clamping, I said. I placed the clamp. I injected the cardioplegia solution, the cold potassium mixture that stops the electrical signals. And then silence. The monitor flatlined. The rhythmic thumping stopped. Marcus Thorne lay on my table, his chest cracked open, his heart still and cold. For all intents and purposes, he was dead. I stood there for a second just looking at it. The absolute power of the moment washed over me. I held his life in my hands. 3 years ago, he held my happiness in his hands and crushed it without a second thought. He told me to get rid of our child. He told me I was nothing. And now? Now I was the only thing standing between him and the morgue. Dr. King, Evans asked softly, ready to open the atrium? I blinked, snapping back to the present. Yes. Scalpel. I cut into the heart. The mitral valve was a mess. It was calcified, stiff, and barely closing. No wonder he was breathless. He was drowning in his own blood flow. It's worse than the echo showed, I muttered, starting to debride the calcium. Look at this anterior leaflet. It's completely destroyed. Can we repair it? Evans asked. No, I said firmly. It needs a total replacement. Mechanical. He's too young for tissue. It'll just fail again in 10 years. I want him to have a permanent solution. I want him to live a long time, I thought bitterly. I want him to have a long, long life to think about what he did. We began the replacement. It was grueling work. My back was screaming. Carrying twins means carrying an extra 20 pounds of weight right on your front, shifting your center of gravity. My lower vertebrae felt like they were grinding together. My ankles were swelling inside my clog, cutting off circulation. But I didn't move. I didn't sit. I stitched. Suture, I demanded. 4-0 proline. I was placing the new mechanical valve, a marvel of carbon and titanium. Stitch, pull, knot. Stitch, pull, knot. It was a dance I had done 1,000 times. But then the monitor on the anesthesia cart flashed red. Pressure is dropping, Dr. Park announced, his voice tight. He's losing volume. Where is it going? I don't see any active bleeding in the field, I said, scanning the chest cavity. Suction. Evans suctioned the blood away. Dr. King, look. The posterior wall. The adhesion we saw earlier. It tore when we retracted. I saw it. A jagged tear in the back of the heart, pumping blood into the chest cavity even though he was on bypass. It was a disaster. He's crashing, Park yelled. Mean arterial pressure is 40. We need to fix that tear now or we lose him. Panic, cold and sharp, tried to seize my throat. If he died on the table, it was over. My career. My reputation. The narrative would be that the vengeful ex-wife let him bleed out. That I was incompetent. That he was right about me. Get me a Pledgetet suture, I barked, my voice cutting through the noise of the alarms. Now. Stop the suction. I need to see the source. Zola, his pressure is 30. Julian's voice came from the corner of the room. He had scrubbed in just like he promised, standing back but watching everything. You have maybe 90 seconds before brain damage starts. I know. I snapped. I reached deep into the chest. I couldn't see the tear clearly. It was behind the heart. I had to do it by feel. I closed my eyes for a fraction of a second, visualizing the anatomy. Don't you dare die on me, Marcus, I thought furiously. You don't get the easy way out. You don't get to die a victim. You survive. You survive so I can ignore you. My fingers found the tear. I felt the rough edge of the muscle. I guided the needle blindly, trusting my hands, the hands he mocked. Flash the clamp, I ordered. Flashing. I threw the stitch. I felt it bite into the muscle. I tied it down, my movements a blur of speed and precision. Another one, I demanded. Here. I threw a second stitch. Then a third. Pressure. I asked, not daring to look up. Holding, Park said, staring at the monitor. It's coming up. 45. 50. 60. The room let out a collective breath. Evans looked at me with wide eyes behind his goggles. That was... How did you even see that? I didn't, I said, finally exhaling. I felt it. I looked at Julian. Above his mask, his eyes were crinkled in a smile of pure pride. He gave me a small nod. You got this. All right, I said, my voice returning to its calm, icy baseline. The tear is repaired. Let's finish seating this valve. I want to be out of here in 20 minutes. My feet are killing me. The rest of the surgery went by the book. We seated the valve. We closed the heart. And then came the moment of truth. Coming off bypass, the perfusionist said. Warming him up. We watched the heart. It was warm now, pink again. But it was still. Shocking at 20 joules, I said. Clear. Everyone stepped back. I hit the button. Marcus's body jerked on the table. Nothing. A flat line. Again, I said. 30 joules. Clear. Zap. Nothing. Come on, Marcus, I whispered, leaning over his chest. Don't be stubborn. Start. I reached in and flicked the side of his heart with my finger. A manual stimulation. Wake up. And then it happened. A flutter. Then a squeeze. Then a strong rhythmic contraction. Thump thump. Thump thump. The monitor picked it up. A beautiful regular sinus rhythm. We have a heartbeat, Dr. Park announced. And, listen to that. We all fell silent. In the quiet, or we could hear it. The sound of the new mechanical valve. Click click. Click click. Click click. It was the sound of a clock. It was the sound of a machine. It was the sound of his life ticking away, powered by my work. He's stable, I said, stripping off my bloody gloves. Close him up, Evans. Use the intradermal stitch. I don't want him to have an ugly scar. He's vain. Evans chuckled nervously. Yes, Dr. King. I walked away from the table. Julian met me at the scrub sink. He pulled my mask down and handed me a cup of water with a straw. You were incredible, he said quietly. That bleed. 99% of surgeons would have lost him. I know, I said, taking a long drink. He doesn't deserve it. No, Julian agreed. He doesn't. But you deserve to know that you are the best. And now you know. I need to sit down, I groaned. My back is broken. Go to your office, Julian said. I'll go talk to the wife. I'll give her the update. No, I said, straightening up. I'll do it. It's my patient. I finished the job. I changed out of my scrubs, put on my white coat to hide the sweat stains, and walked to the surgical waiting room. It was 3 p.m. Trixie was sitting in the corner, looking pale and terrified. She jumped up when she saw me. Dr. King, she cried, rushing over. Is he? He is alive, I said simply. The surgery was successful. She burst into tears, ugly, sobbing tears of relief. Oh, thank God. Thank God. They said there was a complication. Someone ran in with blood. There was a tear in the posterior wall, I said clinically. We repaired it. He has a new mechanical valve. It is functioning perfectly. Can I see him? She asked, wiping her eyes. He is in the ICU, I said. He will be sedated for another few hours. You can see him for 5 minutes, but do not wake him up. His sternum is held together by wire. He needs to rest. Thank you, she sobbed, reaching out as if to hug me. I took a small step back. She froze, remembering who I was. I don't know what to say. After everything. You saved him. I did my job, Mrs. Thorne, I said. That is all. He told me, she whispered, looking down at her shoes. While we were waiting for the labs. He told me what he did to you. About the baby. I didn't know he could be like that. I looked at this young woman. She was wearing a diamond ring that was bigger than the one he gave me, but her eyes held the same fear I used to have. He can be exactly like that, I said softly. You have a long road ahead of you, Trixie. He is going to be in pain. He is going to be angry. He is going to be scared. And men like Marcus, they don't handle vulnerability well. They lash out. I know, she said, her voice trembling. Just protect yourself, I said. It was the only advice I could give her. And tell him I will see him on rounds tomorrow morning. I turned and walked away. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel happy. I just felt empty. I had saved the monster, and now I had to live with the fact that he was still in the world. The next morning I did my rounds early. I wanted to get it over with. I walked into the ICU cubicle. The lights were dim. The machines were humming. Marcus was propped up on pillows, a nasal cannula in his nose, a drainage tube coming out of his chest. He looked terrible. Gray, swollen, weak. But his eyes were open. He saw me and tried to shift, wincing in pain. Don't move, I said, checking the monitors. You just had your chest sawed open. Movement is not your friend. Zola, he rasped. His voice was a wreck from the intubation tube. Dr. King, I corrected automatically. Your vitals are stable. Kidney function is good. You are lucky, Marcus. Extremely lucky. He looked at me, his eyes wet. I heard the click. I paused. Yes, the valve. You hear it. Click, 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 he whispered. It's loud. It's a mechanical valve, I explained. The sound will conduct through your bones. You will hear it when it's quiet. You will feel it when you lie on your side. It is a constant reminder that your heart is working. He closed his eyes, tears leaking out of the corners. It sounds like a clock. Counting down. Or counting up, I said. Depending on how you choose to live the rest of your life. He opened his eyes again. Trixie said. There was a tear. That you saved me when I was crashing. I did. Why? He asked. The question hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Why didn't you just let go? It would have been an accident. No one would have known. I looked down at him. I placed my hand on my belly, feeling the reassuring weight of my daughters. Because I am not you, I said. The words hit him harder than a slap. He flinched. I took an oath, Marcus, I continued, to do no harm. And unlike you, when I make a vow, I keep it. I don't throw people away when they become inconvenient. I don't discard life because it's messy or difficult. I saved you because I am an excellent surgeon. And because your death would have been too easy. Too easy, he whispered. If you died, I said, leaning in slightly, you wouldn't have to live with the guilt. You wouldn't have to look at me and see what you threw away. You wouldn't have to hear that clicking sound every night, reminding you that the only reason your blood is moving is because I made it move. I straightened up, checking his chart one last time. You are going to live, Marcus. You are going to recover. And you are going to go back to your penthouse and your money. But every single time your heart beats, click, 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 you are going to remember me. I turned to leave. Zola, he called out, his voice desperate. Does he know? Your partner? Does he know about us? I stopped. I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. He knows everything, I said. He knows you broke me. And he knows he is the one who put me back together. He's a neurosurgeon, Marcus. He fixes brains. He thinks you're a fascinating case study in narcissism. Is he good to you? He treats me like a queen, I said. He rubs my feet every night. He talks to the twins. He has never, not once, raised his voice at me. He is everything you never were. I walked out of the ICU. I ran into Julian in the hallway. He was wearing his scrubs, looking fresh and handsome. How is the patient? He asked. Stable, I said. Miserable, but stable. And the surgeon? I let out a long breath. Hungry. I want waffles. With an obscene amount of syrup. Julian laughed and put his arm around me. Waffles it is. My treat. But first, Rita has something for you at the desk. If it's more flowers from Marcus, I'm going to set them on fire, I warned. No, Julian said, his eyes twinkling. It's not from Marcus. We walked to the desk. Rita was grinning like a Cheshire cat. She handed me a thick, cream-colored envelope. This came by courier, Rita said. From the medical board. I frowned. The board? Am I being sued? Open it, Julian urged. I tore open the envelope. I pulled out the letter. My eyes scanned the text and my mouth fell open. Dear Dr. King, we are pleased to inform you that based on your innovative techniques in valve replacement and your recent publication on aortic outcomes, you have been nominated for the prestigious Harper Avery Award for Surgical Excellence. I dropped the letter. The Harper Avery? It was the Oscar of the medical world. It was the thing every surgeon dreamed of. You're going to win it, so, Julian said, squeezing my shoulder. You are literally the best in the country. I looked at the letter, then back toward the ICU doors where Marcus lay listening to his mechanical heart. 3 years ago, he told me my ambition was annoying. He told me I would never be anything more than a tired, boring resident. And now? Now I was a Harper Avery nominee. I won, I whispered. What was that? Julian asked. I won, I said louder. I beat him. I beat his voice in my head. But the victory wasn't over yet. Because Marcus Thorne wasn't the type of man to just fade away. As he recovered, as his strength returned, the guilt began to curdle into something else. Something obsessive. He started watching me. 2 weeks later, I signed Marcus's discharge papers. I didn't deliver them myself. I sent a resident, a bright-eyed intern named Dr. Gupta, because I couldn't stomach another conversation about regret or the past. I had surgeries to perform, a department to run, and a nursery to finalize. But Marcus didn't just disappear. You would think that a man who nearly died would run home to his luxury condo and focus on his recovery. You would think he would hold his young, pretty wife close and be grateful for a second chance. But Marcus Thorne had never been good at gratitude. He was good at obsession. It started with the emails. Not to my personal account, he didn't have that, but to my hospital admin email. Long rambling messages sent at 2 a.m. Subject, the noise. Body, I can't sleep. The clicking is so loud. It reminds me of the clock in our old hallway. Do you remember that clock? The one we bought in Paris? I hear it every time my heart beats. It drives me crazy. I need to see you. Just to talk. To explain why I left. I deleted them. I blocked the address. But then he started showing up. Not inside the hospital. Security had strict instructions not to let him pass the lobby unless he was in cardiac arrest, but outside. When I left work in the evenings, waddling toward the parking garage with my swollen ankles throbbing, I would see his black SUV parked across the street. He wouldn't get out. He would just sit there watching Julian pick me up, watching Julian open the car door for me and help me lift my heavy legs inside, watching Julian kiss my temple before getting in the driver's seat. He's there again, Julian said one Tuesday evening, his grip tightening on the steering wheel. That's the 3rd time this week, so I'm going to get a restraining order. He's harmless, I said, leaning my head back against the seat and closing my eyes. He's ghost hunting. He's looking for the wife he threw away, but she doesn't exist anymore. Let him watch. Let him see what a real marriage looks like. It's creepy, Julian muttered, glancing in the rearview mirror as we pulled away. If he steps 1 foot near you or the girls, I will forget my Hippocratic oath. I squeezed Julian's hand. Focus on the gala. I need to find a dress that fits a woman who looks like she swallowed a watermelon. The St. Jude's annual gala was the event of the season. Usually I try to avoid these things. I preferred scrubs to sequins, but this year was different. I was the guest of honor. The Harper Avery nomination had put a spotlight on the hospital, and the board wanted to parade me around like a prize pony. Saturday night arrived and I felt beautiful. I wore a deep emerald green gown made of silk that draped over my twin bump perfectly. My micro braids were piled high in an intricate crown on my head, woven with gold thread. Julian wore a tuxedo that made him look like the next James Bond. You are breathtaking, Julian whispered as we walked into the ballroom. The room was dripping with crystals and expensive flowers. Every person in this room is going to wish they were me tonight. They're going to wish they had your ankles, I joked, shifting my weight. Mine are currently protesting this entire evening. We circulated, shaking hands with donors and board members. I accepted congratulations, smiled for photos, and sipped sparkling water while everyone else drank champagne. I felt powerful. I felt seen. And then I saw him. Marcus. He was standing near the bar, looking thinner than before, his suit hanging slightly loose on his frame. He looked pale, but his eyes were burning with an intensity that cut through the room. Trixie was beside him, looking miserable in a red dress that was too tight. She was holding his arm, but he wasn't even looking at her. He was staring right at me. Ignore him, Julian murmured, sensing my tension. He bought a table. The donor committee couldn't say no to his check. Just breathe. But Marcus wasn't going to stay at his table. Halfway through the night I needed air. The ballroom was hot, and the smell of expensive perfume and roasted chicken was making me nauseous. I slipped out to the terrace, hoping for a quiet moment to rub my lower back. The night air was cool and crisp. I leaned against the stone railing, looking out at the city skyline. I took a deep breath, finally relaxing. You look incredible. I didn't even turn around. I knew the voice. It used to be the voice I fell asleep to. Now it was just a noise that annoyed me. Go away, Marcus, I said to the skyline. I can't, he said. I heard his footsteps approach, slow, hesitant. He stopped a few feet away. I tried to stay away. But I see you everywhere. In the news. In the papers. Dr. Zola King, the miracle worker. You're famous now. I turned to face him. He looked wrecked. His eyes were bloodshot, and there was a desperation in his posture that was pathetic. I am working, Marcus, I said coldly. This is a work event. You are a donor. Enjoy the shrimp, talk to the board members, and leave me alone. I made a mistake, he blurted out. The biggest mistake of my life. He took a step closer. I instinctively put a hand over my belly. I see you with him, Marcus said, his voice cracking. With the neurosurgeon. He touches you like you're precious. Like you're fragile. He touches me like I'm his equal, I corrected. And I'm not fragile. I cut your chest open and sewed you back together, remember? I am the strongest person you know. I know, he whispered. That's the problem. I didn't want you to be strong back then. I wanted you to be mine. I wanted you to need me. But you never needed me, Zola. You just loved me. And I was too stupid to know the difference. He looked down at my belly. Are they? Do you know what you're having? 2 girls, I said, my chin high. Grace and Amara. He flinched. Girls. We talked about having a girl. Remember? We picked out names. We didn't pick out anything, I snapped, my patience snapping. I picked out names. You checked your email and nodded. Don't rewrite history, Marcus. You weren't a partner. You were a roommate who paid the bills and complained about the cleaning. I want to try again, he said. The words hung in the air, absurd and offensive. I laughed. A harsh barking laugh. Try what again? Us? You are married, Marcus. Your wife is inside, probably wondering why her husband ran off. I'll leave her, he said quickly, his eyes wild. I'll divorce her. She's not you. She's a child. We have nothing in common. I miss you, Zola. I miss your drive. I miss your intelligence. I realize now that your ambition wasn't a flaw. It was brilliance. And I tried to dim it. He reached for my hand. Please, let me make it up to you. Let me be the father to those girls. I can give them everything. The best schools, the best life. I snatched my hand back as if he had burned me. You think you can buy my daughters? I hissed, stepping into his space. You think you can buy me? You told me to abort my first child because it was inconvenient for your lifestyle. And now you want to play daddy because I'm successful? Because I'm a trophy you want back on your shelf. No, I love you, he shouted. You don't love me. I shouted back. You love that I saved you. You love that I'm winning awards. You love that I'm out of your league. That isn't love, Marcus. That is ego. And I am done feeding your ego. The terrace door opened. Trixie stood there, her face stained with tears, her mascara running. She had heard enough. Marcus, she whimpered. Marcus didn't even look at her. He was still staring at me, his hand outstretched. Zola, please. Go to your wife, I said, my voice dropping to a deadly calm. Before you destroy another woman the way you tried to destroy me. Is there a problem here? Julian's voice was deep, calm, and dangerous. He stepped out onto the terrace, moving to my side instantly. He didn't look at Marcus with anger. He looked at him with the kind of pity you give a dying insect. He was just leaving, I said, leaning into Julian's side. I think he was, Julian agreed. He looked at Marcus. Mr. Thorne, you're upsetting my fiancé. And you're upsetting your wife. I suggest you go home. Your heart rate is probably elevated, and we wouldn't want you to end up back on Zola's table. She might not be so nice next time. Marcus looked between us. He saw Julian's protective arm around my waist. He saw the way I leaned into him, totally secure, totally loved. He saw the emerald green dress and the gold in my hair, and the glow of a woman who had risen from the ashes he created. He realized finally that he had absolutely no power here. He slumped. The fight went out of him. He looked old. I'm sorry, he whispered. He turned and walked past Trixie without a word. Trixie looked at me for a second, a look of pure humiliation, and then ran after him. I let out a shaky breath. I need to sit down. Let's go, Julian said. I'm taking you home. I have ice cream in the freezer and foot rub with your name on it. We left the gala early. I didn't care about the networking. I had what mattered. But Marcus didn't go home to heal. He went home to a house that was falling apart. Later that night my phone buzzed. It was a text from Trixie. I hadn't given her my number, but she must have found it. Maybe from the hospital forms. He's crying, the text read. He's sitting in the dark in his office, listening to his chest with a stethoscope he bought online. He keeps saying your name. I can't do this anymore. I didn't reply. It wasn't my mess. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. The Harper Avery committee announced the finalists. I was in the top 3. The press wanted interviews. Cardiac surgery today put me on the cover. The headline read, The Heart Healer. Dr. Zola King on medicine, motherhood, and miracles. I was in my office reading the article when Trixie Thorne walked in. She didn't have an appointment. She looked different. The heavy makeup was gone. She was wearing jeans and a sweater. She looked tired but resolute. Mrs. Thorne, I said, putting the magazine down. You can't just walk in here. I'm leaving him, she said. No hello. No preamble. I sat back in my chair. Okay. Why are you telling me? Because you were right, she said, sitting in the chair opposite me. He's obsessed. He doesn't see me. He looks at me and wishes I was you. He talks about your surgery like it was a spiritual experience. It's sick. She twisted her wedding ring, the massive diamond that probably cost more than my medical school tuition. He told me what he said to you on the terrace, she continued. That he would leave me. That I was a mistake. I'm 25 years old, Dr. King. I thought I won. When I got him away from you, I thought I had won the prize. The rich billionaire husband. She laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. But he's not a prize. He's a broken, selfish man with a mechanical heart that ticks like a bomb. And I don't want to be the one standing next to him when he explodes. Good for you, I said genuinely. Get out while you can, Trixie. Find someone who loves you for you, not for how you make him look. I'm filing for divorce today, she said. I wanted to tell you. And I wanted to give you this. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small velvet box. She slid it across the desk. What is this? I asked. He bought it for you, she said. Yesterday. He was planning to send it to you. A push present for the twins. It's a bracelet with their names on it, Grace and Amara. He remembered the names. I stared at the box. The audacity of this man was boundless. He was buying jewelry for my unborn children while his wife packed her bags. I don't want it, I said. I know, Trixie said. That's why I stole it. I'm going to pawn it. I'm going to use the money to pay for my lawyer. I smiled. It was the first time I had ever smiled at Trixie. That sounds like an excellent plan. You won, Dr. King, Trixie said, standing up. You won everything. You have the career, the good man, the babies. And he has nothing but money and regret. I hope that's enough for you. It is, I said. It really is. Trixie left. I was alone in my office. I looked out the window at the hospital grounds below. I thought it was over. I thought Marcus would finally crash and burn on his own. But I underestimated how dangerous a man like Marcus could be when he had nothing left to lose. The following Wednesday, I was scrubbing out after a routine valve repair. The twins were due in 3 weeks, and this was supposed to be my last week of work before maternity leave. I felt a twinge in my lower back, a sharp rapping pain that radiated to the front. I paused, gripping the sink. Braxton Hicks, I told myself. Just practice contractions. But 10 minutes later in the locker room it happened again. Harder. Stronger. And then a gush of fluid soaked my scrubs. My water broke. Oh no, I whispered, grabbing my phone. Not yet. Not here. I dialed Julian. It's time. Meet me in LND. I waddled as fast as I could toward the elevators. But as the doors opened on the ground floor, I ran into the last person I wanted to see. Marcus. He looked unhinged. Unshaven, wearing sweatpants, his eyes wild. He had bypassed security, probably slipped in through the ER. Zola! He shouted when he saw me. Zola, she left me. Trixie left me. I'm alone. I groaned, clutching my belly as another contraction ripped through me. Marcus, get out of my way. I am in labor. Labor. He froze, staring at the puddle forming around my sneakers. Now? But I can help. Let me help you. I can drive you. I am in a hospital. I screamed at him, pressing the button for the elevator. I don't need a ride. I need my husband. I can be your husband, he yelled, grabbing my arm. He wasn't living in reality anymore. His grief and guilt had snapped something in his brain. I can fix this. Let me be there. Let me see them born. Please, Zola. It's my second chance. Security. I screamed, my voice echoing off the walls. 2 guards came running around the corner. They saw Marcus harassing a pregnant staff member and didn't hesitate. They tackled him. No. Zola. Don't shut me out. Marcus screamed as they pinned him to the floor. I love you. I saved you. You owe me. I saved you. I yelled back, the elevator doors finally opening. And I don't owe you a damn thing. I stepped into the elevator, pressing the button for the maternity floor. As the doors slid shut, the last thing I saw was Marcus Thorne, the billionaire, the man who thought he owned the world, being dragged away in handcuffs, screaming my name while I ascended to the life he would never ever touch. The elevator doors slid shut, cutting off the sound of Marcus screaming my name. In the silence that followed, all I could hear was my own ragged breathing and the ping of the floor indicator. Ping. 2nd floor. Ping. 3rd floor. I sank to the floor of the elevator, clutching my belly. The contractions were coming in waves now, tidal waves that threatened to pull me under. But through the pain I felt a strange sense of clarity. Marcus was gone. He was downstairs, being handled by security, trapped in the wreckage of his own making. I was going up. I was ascending. When the doors opened on the maternity floor, nurses were already waiting. Dr. King. Sarah, the charge nurse, rushed forward with a wheelchair. We got a call from security. Are you okay? Is he? He's gone, I gasped, climbing into the chair. Get me to a room. And get Julian. He's already scrubbing in, Sarah said, wheeling me fast down the corridor. He beat the ambulance here. The next 12 hours were a blur of agony and ecstasy. Labor is the great equalizer. It doesn't matter if you are a chief surgeon or a billionaire's wife. Pain is pain. But this time I wasn't doing it alone. 5 years ago when I lost my first baby, I was in a cold bathroom, sobbing into a towel so the neighbors wouldn't hear. This time I had Julian. He was there for every breath. He held my hand until his fingers must have been numb. He wiped my forehead with cool cloths. He whispered encouragement in my ear, his voice a steady anchor in the storm. "You're doing it so," he murmured, kissing my sweat-dampened temple. "You are a warrior. Look at you. You're bringing our queens into the world." "I can't." I cried at the transition, the moment where you feel like your body is splitting in two. "I can't do it, Julian. It hurts too much." "Yes, you can," he said firmly, looking me in the eye. "You faced down Marcus Thorne. You held a beating heart in your hand. You can do anything." And I did. At 4:12 a.m. Grace arrived. She came out screaming, a tiny furious bundle of limbs and lungs. Julian cut the cord, tears streaming down his face. 12 minutes later Amara followed. She was quieter, looking around the room with wide, dark eyes that looked exactly like mine. When they placed both of them on my chest, skin to skin, the world stopped. The noise of the monitors, the chatter of the nurses, the pain in my body, it all faded away. There was just the smell of new life, the warmth of their tiny bodies, the feeling of Julian's arm around my shoulders, completing the circle. "We did it," I whispered, touching Grace's tiny hand. "You did it," Julian corrected. "I just cheered from the sidelines." I looked up at him. "You were never on the sidelines, Julian. You were right there in the arena with me." We stayed in the hospital for 3 days. It was a bubble of bliss. But outside that bubble, Marcus's life was imploding. I learned the details from Dr. Evans, who came to visit the twins. "It's all over the news," Evans said, lowering his voice so he wouldn't wake the babies. "The police arrested him for trespassing and harassment. Trixie filed for divorce the same morning. She cleaned him out, Zola. She had a forensic accountant waiting. Turns out Marcus had been hiding assets. The SEC is getting involved now. And his health?" I asked, rocking Amara. "He's physically fine," Evans said. "The valve you put in is working perfectly. But he's not doing well mentally. He fired his entire legal team yesterday. He spends his days sitting in his empty penthouse, writing letters to the editor about how he was wronged by the medical establishment." "Let him write," I said softly. "Paper can't fix a broken soul." I went home. I took my maternity leave. For 3 months I didn't think about surgeries or hearts or Marcus Thorne. I thought about diaper changes and feeding schedules and the way Julian sang off-key lullabies to get Grace to sleep. I healed. But the final chapter wasn't written yet. 6 months later, the Harper Avery Awards ceremony was held in New York City. I almost didn't go. Leaving the twins for a weekend felt like leaving a limb behind. But Julian insisted. "This is your moment, Zola," he said, packing my suitcase. "You earned this. You need to stand on that stage and show the world what you did." So we went. The ceremony was in a grand theater, filled with the best surgeons in the world. I wore gold this time, a fitted gold gown that shimmered under the lights. I felt like a trophy myself, but a trophy I had won, not one I had been bought as. When they announced my category, my heart hammered against my ribs. And the winner of the Harper Avery Award for Surgical Innovation is Dr. Zola King. The room erupted. Julian kissed me, a long deep kiss that made a few people whistle. I walked up the stairs to the stage. The spotlight was blinding. I took the heavy crystal award in my hands. I looked out at the sea of faces. And then I saw him. He wasn't in the audience. He couldn't afford a ticket anymore. And he certainly wasn't invited. But as I looked toward the back of the theater, near the exit signs, I saw a figure standing in the shadows. It was Marcus. He looked older. He looked smaller. He was wearing a suit that looked a little worn, a little out of date. He was leaning against the wall, watching me. Our eyes met across the distance. I waited for the fear. I waited for the anger. I waited for the satisfaction. But I felt nothing. It was the most liberating feeling in the world. I didn't hate him. I didn't pity him. He was just a man. A man who had once occupied space in my life, and now occupied none. I turned back to the microphone. "Thank you." I said, my voice ringing out clear and strong. This award is for every woman who was told she was too ambitious. For every resident who was told she was too emotional. For every mother who was told she couldn't have it all. I looked at Julian in the front row, beaming at me. We are told that we have to choose between love and greatness, I continued. But I stand here tonight as proof that love is greatness. I want to thank my partner, Dr. Julian Vance, who taught me that a real man doesn't dim your light. He hands you a torch. The crowd applauded. And finally, I said, looking one last time at the shadows in the back of the room, I want to thank the people who doubted me, the people who threw me away. Because in trying to bury me, you didn't realize I was a seed. I raised the award high. The applause was deafening. When I looked back at the exit, the shadows were empty. Marcus was gone. We flew back home the next day. Life returned to its beautiful, chaotic normal. Surgeries, twins, coffee, laughter. One rainy Tuesday, a letter arrived at our house. It had no return address, but the handwriting was spidery and familiar. Julian brought it to me in the kitchen. Do you want to open it? I looked at the envelope. I knew what it was. It was Marcus's last attempt. His last word. I took it. I walked over to the trash can. Aren't you curious? Julian asked. No, I said. I know what it says. It says I'm sorry. It says I regret it. It says come back. But the thing about ghosts, Julian, is that they only haunt you if you invite them in. I dropped the unopened letter into the trash. Besides, I said, turning to my husband and wrapping my arms around his neck, I have everything I need right here. Somewhere across the city, in a lonely, silent apartment, Marcus Thorne sat in a leather chair. The room was dark. He had lost his wife. He had lost his reputation. He had lost the only woman who had ever truly loved him. He sat there in the silence, pressing a hand to his chest. He didn't have her forgiveness. He didn't have her attention. He didn't even have her hate. All he had was the sound, the relentless mechanical rhythm of the valve she had placed inside him. The valve that kept him alive to suffer the consequences of his own choices. Click, 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 click. Ticked like a clock. Ticked like a bomb. It ticked like the footsteps of a woman walking away, never to return. And for Marcus Thorne, that sound would be the only company he would ever have again. And that is the story of Dr. Zola King. She proved that the best revenge isn't keying his car or ruining his life. It's surpassing him. It's becoming so successful, so happy, and so complete that his absence doesn't even leave a scar. What do you think? Did Marcus deserve a harsher punishment? Or is living with his regret the worst torture of all? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button. It really helps the channel. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. We post new dramas every week. Thanks for watching, and remember, be careful who you step on while you're climbing the ladder. They might be the only one who can catch you when you fall. See you in the next one.